Good morning, gardening friends. Today is Sunday, July 21st. It's about 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's going to be a beautiful day. It's about 80 degrees right now, and it is fully humid, as you can tell by the condensate on the outside of my double-paned windows here on the front porch. I thought I'd start here today. I guess the general theme today is going to be shop your own garden first, or your own house. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos about people prettying up their yards and trimming plants. And don't be so fast to throw those trimmings out. You'd be surprised that many of them will reroot. I know I don't grow them myself because I am not fond of petunias in the South, because in the deep South at least, I have never had any luck with them becoming anything other than a long, stringy, sticky mess. However, many people are successful with them. In fact, there's a whole range of plants called supertunias out there, none of which are propagated by seed. The companies all propagate them by cuttings. So whenever you see these shows of people trimming supertunias, you might think, well, why don't you take those cuttings and put them in the ground? But it turns out supertunias are trademarked. And actually, if you Google it, you will find that it is akin to stealing if you take a cutting from the supertunia that you bought and stick it in the ground, and potentially you could be fined $3 per cutting. Go figure. But petunias are extremely easy to root. Let me just say that and then move on. What I did a lot of here is, let's start right here. I'll bring the plant up. I usually keep this in my kitchen. I started with my scented geranium. It had gotten leggy. So I took 3 cuttings just about a week ago and stuck them in this pot. I did read that it is better if you stick the cuttings near the edge of something. They tend to root better that way. But as you can see, they still have, these were wilted when I first put them in, and I keep the soil moist. I don't use anything special, I just use potting soil. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but the cuttings were going to be tossed into the bin anyway, so you might as well give it a try. And of course, this coleus is from cuttings. I haven't had the heart yet to trim it back, although I will. I cut it back a little bit. But the other thing I wanted to show you here was I trimmed up all of my wandering dudes this week. This particular pink one I just bought, and I bought it in a pot about that diameter, about literally an inch and a half diameter, and it had grown very leggy. And so what I did is I got a bigger pot, and I planted the original plant in that, and it had, I think, 3 or 4 long, probably about a foot long strings of a plant. And so what I did is I cut it back, left the original plants in the pot, and then I just took me a, chopstick. I love chopsticks. And poked holes in the dirt, and I did use rooting hormone, which I happen to have. I bought a small thing of rooting hormone over 10 years ago and still have the same container. But in any event, you dip the freshly cut tip into that and then just stick it in a hole in the ground. So I did that to that wandering dude, as well as the one in this corner. This corner, I wanted it to droop a little more. And so I left some of the longer bits, but I did go ahead. The top of the pot was absolutely bare because the leaves had died there. So I cut, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tip cuttings and stuck them in up there. I did move things around. I had to find room for this fern because it had gotten so tall. I used to have one of those staghorn ferns many years ago. It got real big and I hung it on a wall. And I forgot what happened to it. I think I just got tired of misting it because it would get all over the wall, and gave it away to somebody. But that one has been in this room now for about 4 or 5 years, and it's starting to send out some long leaves. Everything else here is still doing fine. Things that aren't is there's one of the cuttings of the geranium. Let me get a close up here. I took about 4 weeks ago. It looks pitiful. It was doing fine till I brought it in this front porch. It does have some signs of life at the top. And I made the mistake. I did not know this. Now I know it and won't make the mistake again. But I use fertilizer every couple of weeks on my indoor plants. I just use Miracle Grow, diluted by half. And I put fertilizer in that pot with the cutting, and it absolutely fried it. So don't put fertilizer, water-soluble fertilizer around your cuttings until they're well-rooted. The other thing that I learned is I have to swing you around. Pothos. These philodendron-like things. You may recall, if you go back in some of my earlier videos, that I had it on the other wall, right here where I moved my apicia, and I let it grow up over the top of the bird cage and the top of the picture, and I thought it looked, oh my goodness, that looks so good. And then I took a closer look, and I don't know as if you can see, it sent a root into my drywall. Ticked me off. So needless to say, I cut it back, and they were like 6-foot long pieces. They were rather large. And I stuck them in water. And lo and behold, I've got about 5 cuttings down there. I just potted them up yesterday. I stuck them in a vase and stuck them out in the garage, my little propagation chamber, where I don't like to look at things in vases unless they look pretty. And trust me, this did not. And so in any event, they rooted quite nicely, and I just potted them up yesterday. So I have them, they were in the bright light of the garage, but I moved them in the back now since they're in dirt. And it's going to shock them a little bit till the roots get used to having the dirt. So there you have it. Let's take a walk. You may hear the rumble of distant thunder. It is about 80 degrees right now, and the sky looks ominously gray. So while you're up there, look at those gorgeous crepe myrtle blossoms. I always describe that as watermelon pink. That's about the closest I could come to that. Very old-fashioned type of crepe myrtle. That one was here before I bought the house. And you can see the bark is still exfoliating. I haven't cleaned it up any yet. It does get to be quite messy. It falls on the ground. I'm going to keep a bag of it for fire starting later in the year. Tomatoes are doing fine. I noticed some of the bottom leaves on this one I'll have to take off. But it is sending up plenty of new growth. It's grown a couple of inches. This side is a week later than that other one, and it has pretty much doubled in length so far. No new flowers yet. My cucumbers are starting to roam, which is fine. I wanted them to do that. I don't see any pods. Well, maybe there's one little pod on my okra. I only have 3 okra plants this year. It did really well last year, and I kind of OD'd on okra. Oh, there's a large truck leaving the grocery store across the street. It is that time of the year that the parsley dies back, or dies, period. I don't think I mentioned my ginger. That is edible ginger back in there. I planted a hand of ginger that I got from the grocery store. My blackberries are really taking off, and there is a grasshopper. It is not, however, a horselubber, so I will let him live. Horselubbers are just nasty. Oh, what I was going to say about the blackberry, I have read some things on YouTube, and also I have some herb books, that apparently blackberry leaf tea has some healthful benefits. You can see I did get rid of the butterfly bush, and I decided I am not a grass fan, but I do have some grasses. This is lemongrass, and it does not have sharp edges. I used to have pampas grass in the backyard, and I remember fondly mowing next to it and having the sharp leaves cut into my legs as I would go by. So, needless to say, I got rid of that. That's actually where the Serenoan repens is now. Originally, that was a big stand of pampas grass. Back in here, all is doing well. Potato vine is really scrambling across the top of the fence. Can't really see anything majorly different from last week. The beans all kind of look still a little pitiful, but they are coming back. This stand here is doing the best. So far, the beetles have left the air potatoes alone. The leaves are still hole free. When the beetles come, and they will defoliate the entire vine within a matter of a couple of days. So you do have to watch out for them. Back in here, I have to trim back the wandering dude for the third time this year, because it is obliterating my gardenias. It doesn't really kill them. Oh, there's a little bumblebee or two working the flowers. But what it does do is it kind of shades them out from the sun, which of course will eventually kill them. So you do have to be careful. I decided to leave my Mexican petunias because sometimes Mother Nature just plants things and they actually look pretty good when they actually come up. It's kind of just an accident, but or a bigger plan. But I decided to leave them and maybe let one or two stay in the spot and live. Gosh, the bumblebees are just out all over today. Well, I guess they're getting their nectar or pollen while they can, because it is going to rain. So they're working while they can. I don't know if you can see, but there is a ginger lily blooming under there. Ooh, it's starting to sprinkle a little bit. My fig tree is doing well. Figs have long since come and gone. And here you can see how the weather is really good on plants. All the new growth on my azaleas is looking really good, as are the colorful plants. I keep wanting to call them cyclamen, but they're not cyclamen. I'll think of the name shortly. It's early in the morning. It's 7 o'clock, and I haven't had my first cup of coffee yet. Caladiums. But they really show up, especially when they have bits of white in them. And there's a Mexican petunia in bloom. Flowers only last one day. I don't know. Sometimes it shows up whiter in the phone. However, it is pink, and it's not quite as much close to a pink as these azaleas, but the inside of it is. My ponytail palm has greened up nicely and loves that spot. This little section has really thickened out nicely. I do like the way that looks. Last year, of course, there was construction on the street, so I didn't do much to this front garden bed because there were open holes and piles of dirt all over. So it does look really good this year. You can see how nice and thick the cassia has gotten. And that was my intent. I'm just going to let it grow now. It'll probably get about 8 feet tall. I will have to stake it because it's going to be a little floppy. But everything here is looking nice. These leaves are huge on this caladium. If I put my hand next to it, you can see. And so far, these have been pretty much bug-free. Not much has changed out by the street. We'll take a quick walk there. My neighbor's house is for sale. I do like the look of these bananas. Those bananas, I couldn't plant anything with a large root because those bananas are planted on top of a ground down stump. If you go back a year or so ago, I used to have a huge old oak tree there. Well, not huge. It was probably about a 16, 18-inch diameter tree. And I had the city, well, I had them take it down. If they didn't, I would. But I've been fighting with the city to get it taken down. I didn't want it there. It was so tall that it threatened my house. And the city said it was their tree and it was looking healthy, so they wouldn't take it down. Well, when they did put the sidewalks in, they also surveyed, and I asked them about the survey marker where mine was, and so they showed me, and I left a stake there in the ground so I know in future. But bottom line, the tree was on my property. So I said, either you guys take it down or I'm going to take it down, but it's my tree. So I was so thankful. Now I don't have to worry about anything falling on the house. Some of you might be wondering, the one telephone pole has those dead things going up it. Well, those dead things are remnants of creeping fig. And for some reason, about the time they started construction on the road, my creeping fig miraculously died on that pole. Just saying. It had been there for quite a few years. And I thought I could cut it off, but I'll tell you what, those twigs are like iron. I tried using my hedge on a stick, or my hedge trimmers on a stick, and they go about a good 10 or 12 feet tall. I figured I could get half of that. Well, the very first branches I tried cutting with it seized up the hedge trimmers. So the stems on that are like iron, so I'm letting it age for a few years. It will eventually fall off by itself. Here are the remnants of my lilies of the Nile. Still, these lilies of the Nile have not bloomed yet. They bloomed the first year I planted them. They keep spreading, just don't keep blooming. Why that one does and this one doesn't is beyond me, but they stay green and I remain hopeful. The everyday rains, usually around 3 o'clock is the time when we get some rain. If not, someone else gets it nearby and it cools us down. So I'm thankful for that. But you can see here my rambling Kimberly fern is doing well. Now's the time I may transplant some of it. By the way, the one nice thing about having an established garden is you don't have to worry about watering things quite as much, because in the heat of the day, anything that's been in here for 3 or 4 years is going to be fine. It's just the stuff that's newly planted that you have to keep ahead of watering. Australian tree fern, still sending up new shoots. Old leaf hasn't turned brown anymore. It just must have gotten burned as it was unfurling. And you can see that my nandinas have sprouted up nicely. Even these nandinas here. That one was cut, the top one was cut 2 weeks ago. Let's see how this pear has come, because I told you I cut this one. My neighbor Sarah said she wanted it about that height, so 2 weeks later it's almost there. There will be no flowers on those nandinas this year. That one has some fruit at the top that'll turn red because I cut them all off and they only flower one time a year. So this tree is getting heavily laden with satsumas, bending way over. I may have to lighten the load at the top some more. What I did is I took the lower ones off so the branches would pop up and help support the other branches that are pushing downward. Cordyline, still doing well. I think that's a good spot for cordylines. By the way, I did go to Lowe's this last week, and those cordylines that I saw when I bought this one that were $30 were now half price. They apparently didn't sell. Go figure. Here, you can see how nice the peach-colored Angel's Trumpet has come back after being burned. Here, I did put the trellis up this week, and I'm trying to train the potato vine up to it. I do like the look of it. It gives me something to draw my attention to as opposed to all the new construction on the other side of the fence. And thank God we leveled it, because when you look at it from afar, it lines up nicely with Sarah's new porch extension. Cleome rather, still doing well. These Chemacypris really like it here. I bought about 8 of them years ago, and only 4 survived, and these are 2 of them. They will get bigger. Here's my original Iachroma. Still has yet to bloom. Ah, you don't know about the other Iachroma. Well, you'll find out later. I see Godot has been here because his bowl has got mud in it. He gets fresh water every night when I come out to sit in the garden. Grass is really growing nicely. Could be mowed, but it's mostly weeds anyway. As long as you keep a good edge on it, no one's going to notice. These vincas, I tell you, you really can't beat vinca for performance in the heat of the summer. They have never wilted. They just keep getting a little bigger, and not much eats them. I remember up north I put them in my garden, and deer will take a bite out of them and then never touch them again. They're a good thing to plant. I used to take care of the family plot in the cemetery, and I used to plant, I put geraniums out there, deer ate them. Basically, deer ate everything. The only things that wound up living were grape hyacinths and vincas. So, it's one thing to keep in mind. They are deer will pass them up. And here is my signature garden. It is doing quite well. Got something sprouting up here. It looks like another one of those is coming up. And this is an alyssum that I planted way back last fall. And it looks so good there. I like alyssum, I like the smell of alyssum, but in this garden it gets swallowed up because I don't really have a spot that's in your face. Oh, look at the sun shining on that web. I don't know if you can pick it up in the camera. I don't mind webs there where you don't walk into them. Back in here, all is still well. No bud growth or indication yet on the toad lily, but it will happen. Oh, I forgot to mention while we were here, we have an errant daylily. Got a couple of blossoms coming up in high summer. Quite unusual, but I welcome the added color. My plumbago is doing well. Of course, is acting like a ground cover. It is a nice blue color. I'd sooner it act like a ground cover. This was where I planned on putting the white caladiums, and I'm so glad that I didn't, because I had forgotten. It's easy to plan in the wintertime when nothing else is growing, but at least this way it gives some space for other things to grow and extend on the ground. Here's a close-up of the flower stalk of a Serenoan repens. We'll end at the deck. I have the mosquito repellent going on the deck, so there'll be a nice mosquito-free cloud to retire to. There are some flowers coming on these toad lilies. Those are the ones I got from Walmart last year. I bought 3 bare roots. 2 of them lived, and I have to admit, from one root, this year, second year, 1, 2, 3, 4 shoots. If they find a spot they like, they take off. This one has 4 shoots, is 5 shoots. So it found a good spot. They do like, apparently, semi-shade with a western sun exposure, because these are on the same side of my cycad as those are on the fence. So in other words, they're not going to get any sun until late in the afternoon. That's the trick when you live in a zone 9A. You really don't have sun and shade all that much. You kind of have, it depends on the time of the day and how many hours of sun things get. So you kind of have to try things around in different places and see where they grow, where they won't grow. Got my little fountain going. Something was there because it knocked some of the little shells inside, but being as hot as it is, I don't begrudge animals coming to drink. I hear a squawky bird, so there must be cats around. Here you can see the seeds of the pindo palm have rotted away and probably kept Gado, my tortoise, quite happy. There is another batch that are fixing to ripen and fall. These seeds are quite fertile, so they will sprout. You can't really tell the sprout of the pindo palm. It's hard to discriminate between it and liriope, the stuff right next to it, or monkey grass, until it gets a little bigger, because it comes up looking like a grass, except it doesn't stop growing. And I made the mistake. I thought it was a needle palm one time, where those 2 trout lilies are, not trout lilies, toad lilies, in between these cycads here. I thought I had a needle palm come up there, and I let it grow, and it turned out it was a pindo palm. And I thought, okay, let it grow until it got so big that I couldn't walk down. At that time, there was not a ramp there, there were steps there. So I wound up having to cut it out. And let me tell you, if you've ever cut down a palm, they are extremely hard to cut, at least with a handsaw. Back in here, all is well, and I did promise you last week, I said I had taken and trimmed back one of my pink angel's trumpets because it was growing too close to the potted plant I had next to it. And what I did is I just cut it back, or I cut the branch off. It was about 4 foot long. I cut it in half, and I cut out the middleman. I just plunked it in the ground, dipped it in rooting hormone, poked a hole in the ground with a stake, and stuck it in about a good 1.5 feet, or a foot at least. All of the leaves fell off of it, but because of the daily rains, you can see that it is growing roots because it is setting new leaves out. So I will have, this combination is going to be, let me back out of this spot now. The angel's trumpet in front of it was a cutting I took last year of the white. So, not last year, that was this spring I took that. So I'll have a white and pink angel's trumpet come up in here. And I do fully expect them to bloom this year. they grow quite quickly when they're rooted nicely. Ooh, the mosquitoes are nasty here. Thank God I dosed myself down. David is still looking luxuriously green over here. This palm is looking much better now that the fertilizing has taken place. That's the other nice thing for the rains. All the fertilizer is slowly washing into the ground. And again, the vincas and pots are doing pretty well. I have not moved those pots around. That was my original thought when I put these pots up here, is I thought I would get 4 of the same thing. And because these 2 pots under this palm are in shade, I figured they wouldn't do that well, so I would move them and sort of juggle them around. But it turns out they get enough sun to do fine right where they are. So again, the nice thing about putting vincas in pots is I water them from this side of the grass. And so they're strong enough to take a hose spray and not break. Can't do that with coleus. Back in here, all is well. My shrimp plant is sending out new growth, so it likes it. This is where I took one of the cuttings. There used to be another branch of this. Well, those were 2 cuttings I took last year of the pink angel's trumpet last fall and rooted them over winter. But there was one planted right next to that pot, and that's the one I cut down. So it looks like I've got 4 good, strong branches, so it should, and you can see it's already starting to catch up to the other angel's trumpet. Oh, there's a flower up there. This is peach. They are quite fragrant, but their fragrance tends to come out in the evening more so than in the morning. And I've got a couple of blooms. I can't get in there because it's too thick right now on my bottle brush. Back in here, everything still looks good. I've got to come back and trim my vines again. My jasmine. I never did get to the fence this week, or this last week. I will probably get to it this week. Doesn't have to be done, but it looks cleaner when I get the stuff that's looping over the top. Over here, all is well. This angel's trumpet is sending out lots of flowers. And I had cut it back a couple of weeks ago. I threw those out, those cuttings, but you can see here and there where I cut it, it's already sending up new shoots. So that's the nice thing about shopping in your own yard. You can take cuttings and root them and have more plants. One thing I should say, I have forsythias here, and there's one over here. Forsythias don't do real well down here, but up north, I was about 50 miles north of New York City in a zone 6 at that time. I don't know what it is now, but forsythias are extremely easy to root. What you want to do is, and actually you can root the cuttings. You want a cutting that you can snap like that with your fingers. If you can't snap it with your fingers, don't take it as a cutting. But basically you trim the bottom of that off, dip it in some rooting hormone, and you can stick it in some sand or some potting soil. And at least my luck was probably about 90% of the cuttings I took. I'd usually put like 3 in a single pot. And pretty much by the next year, it was already a nice little... It's not going to grow that much, but it will establish itself with roots. And within about 3 years, you can have a pretty nice size hedge for free, just from the cuttings that you took from your own plant. Mostly when I take cuttings, I put them in water, but there are a few things that you can just put right in dirt. Another one, of course, is the outside wandering dude. The inside one, needless to say, I did use I basically just the same thing, stuck it in dirt. My Ozark plum has made a nice tree after just a little bit of pruning from me. It is now the size of the kumquat next to it, so I'm hoping to keep it about that height. I do have kumquats. They will ripen around Thanksgiving. They do every year because I make my cranberry kumquat sauce. But it's strange because I see flowers. Very sweet smelling little flowers. So it's got fruit as well as flowers on it. It's hard to tell what the sound of the bubbling water is versus rain, because it is peppering rain here. Oh, there's a catbird up in this palm somewhere. There he is. I don't know if you can see him or not. He has tamed to the point now where he loves to come, or she, I don't know which one it is, loves to come and eat cat food that's on the deck. And it's gotten tame enough now where it doesn't mind that I'm sitting next to the cat food. So it will come in about 3 feet away and nibble away. Here you can see the flowers on the hosta. And being in a pot, it has very minimal slug damage. It still has some. Here was the new news of the week. I replaced that iachroma that got munched on by that green caterpillar with a cardboard palm. I have been wanting a cardboard palm for ages, and I finally found one. It is not quite hardy enough to grow in this zone. This is the lower edge of its growing zone, 9. I'm a 9A, but I will have to probably take it in during the really cold nights. But it is a cycad. You can see it has the base of a cycad, and it's called cardboard palm because these leaves are very stiff, like cardboard. Its Latin name is Zamia something or other. I haven't put the tag there yet. But this is the scented geranium that I took the cuttings from. And the nice thing, you can see already, the branches that I took the cuttings from are sending out shoots. So, again, shop your own garden. Your plant will come back, and if you don't throw those cuttings out, they may root. You have nothing to lose. And it is starting to pepper rain a little more, so I'm going to speak a little faster. But I'm trying to do the same with my kufia. Let me get this chair out of here. Actually, I'll sit in the chair. I tried putting kufia in the ground directly in a pot in my kitchen to no success. It stayed for about a week and a half and then just dramatically died. And when I pulled them up to reuse the pot and the potting soil, I noticed one of them did set roots. So I'm trying a different tactic. It was getting floppy, and I was going to cut some of the floppy things off, and I decided instead I would do an air layering. And so I tucked them, 3 of them, into the ground, and when my mom was still alive, I would have gotten a few of her bobby pins, but since I didn't have any, I wound up just taking little pieces of wire and bending them in a U shape, and I pinned the stalk. I made a little hole, pinned the stalk into the ground, and then put dirt over it. So I'm hoping that those kufia will root. So we shall see. Again, I was going to cut those branches off anyway. So now the only thing is I have to remember not to move that pot. And tell the guy that blows off the deck once a week not to move that pot. Otherwise it'll yank the... Oh, there's the... Bird is back wanting its cat food. The cat food is kept under there. And I've got my mosquito repellent thing going over here, Thermacell. It does work exceedingly well. I shall sit in my normal rocking chair. But yeah, sitting here, you can see where my feet are. The catbird is now tame enough where it comes and actually goes to the bowl and grabs food. The banana is now over my shoulder when I sit, so it has grown. I'll tell you, this pitcher plant, that Sarracenia, has done extremely well this year. It has pretty much doubled. This one stays about the same. I think it's maximized itself for that bowl. I will probably have to break that bowl and put it in a larger one, but it doesn't seem to be showing any of the worse for wear, so... Ooh, someone's sneaking up. I don't know if you can... Oh, he's moving. I don't know if you can see him. He wants some food. The only other thing back here is I finally cracked how to grow these sun patiens, and that is, if you ever let them dry out, they will flatten out to within an inch of the pot. But you can see I have a smaller pot and a large saucer. And I just keep that saucer full of water at all times. And I haven't had any problems with... Ooh, someone is insistent here about getting that food. Miss Mimi was sitting out with me yesterday. She's doing fine. She just doesn't care for this heat. So she was sitting out with me. The bird really was paying more attention to the food than it was to the cat. I'm looking to see, no, Miss Mimi's not looking at the door. Sometimes she wants to go out for a little while. But yes, all is well here. It's a beautiful day. Peppering rain. It's a great day for gardening. So I hope you all get to get out in your gardens this week, even for 5-10 minutes. And just enjoy them. Until next week, take care.